Some say life after 50 can be the best years of your life. This is Robert Manni, host of Guys TV, and this week my special guest is the host of Second Act TV, Silke Schwarzkopf. It all starts right here, right now on Guys TV. You can also catch me on KCAA Radio here in Southern California and Guys Radio, my worldwide podcast. Guys TV, Guys Radio, thanks for your support. Okay, Guys Radio, the interview portion of my show, and today we're going to talk about how you can make the best of the second half of your life. And hopefully everybody out there is heading towards or into the second half of their life, and you want to make the best of it because things change each and every day in our crazy world. And I have an expert on here who has a very popular YouTube show called Second Act TV, and her name is Silke Schwarzkopf. I've been on her show a number of times. Had a lot of fun, and she's been on our show a few times, and we've had a lot of fun. And she's the creator and host of Second Act TV, the YouTube channel focused on recreating and living your life to the fullest after the age of 50. She's a seasoned producer. She owned and operated an award-winning production company for nearly 20 years. Shortly after her 50th birthday, she took a leap of faith. She moved to California. She left her marriage, she returned home, and she launched this new channel, and it's super popular. So I thought it would be great if we had her come on Guys TV and talk about what she's learned from a lot of the guests she's had on the show, talking about various aspects of living your best life in the second act. So welcome back to Guys Radio, Silke Schwarzkopf. How are you?
Thank you, Robert. I'm great. Well, the biggest secret to having a popular YouTube channel after 50 is to book Robert Manni as a guest.
and talk about sex, right?
And talk about sex.
You know, that's a constant. It doesn't go away after age 50, and we're going to talk about that. But let's start at the beginning. How did you become a kind of an expert at what you do, Silke? What you're doing right now?
I guess by doing it, gosh, where do I start? I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. As you said, I left my marriage after 50. I was married 25 years. The last 10 years were very unhappy. And when I turned 50, it was like an awakening. And I've heard that from a lot of people as well. Somehow, when you hit that number, it's like, well, if I'm lucky, half of my life is, well, I still have half of my life ahead of me, certainly, a good 20, 30, 40 years, hopefully. And do I really want to keep on living like this? I mean, it wasn't a horrible situation. It was just, I wasn't doing what I wanted to do. We weren't happy, and I didn't want to stay that way. And once I started expressing that, more and more people came to me and said, God, that's, the same thing. And then I learned about gray divorce, that the divorce rate after 50 is way up. And suddenly I didn't feel so alone, or crazy, that I wanted to make a major change after 50. And again, going, on and on with this, hooking back up with my friends in California. I lived in Texas at the time, sharing what I'm doing, when I'm thinking with them. They're all in the same boat too. As a matter of fact, 4 of them are now divorced and remarried. And I don't want to sound like I'm advocating divorce here. It's just that just happened. That's the way it happened for me. But there is something after the age of 50 where you look at what you're doing. It can be the relationship you're in, which certainly was a big part for me, but also the purpose and passion. What am I doing with my life? What do I want to maybe leave behind? What do I want my life to mean? And that's kind of how this all started.
As part of that, what do you think, looking back and even looking at the present, what's been the biggest challenge with that?
Oh gosh, the biggest challenge, just, believing that you can do it, because it's a big up and down. I mean, I kind of sound jovial, or in my introduction, it's as you said, big YouTube channel. But yeah, but it took me a while to get there. And there's a lot of time where you can give up in the process. So it's not for the faint of heart. It's really something that you have to have a desire to create something new or recreate your life. It's totally doable, but it does require dedication and the confidence that can sometimes be shattered a little bit.
So you've interviewed so many fascinating guests, including myself, of course, and about living our best life after the age of 50. So what are some of the universal truths that the folks that you've interviewed have shared with you, that you know, things you've heard from more than one person that rang a bell that say, you know what, everybody seems to be having the same feeling or the same insight or the same knowledge after 50?
Yeah. Well, for me, because our show focuses a lot on relationships, starting over again or saving a relationship, perhaps, a marriage that's on the rocks. As we know, marriage, is up and down. It's tough. It's why we have such a high divorce rate. I would say the universal thing is that we all want love. Some of us might be fed up with it, and yeah, I never want to go there again. But ultimately, that's what we want. Even on the channel, when I get comments, oh, I'm done dating. Sucks. Blah blah blah. And then I look, I said, well, why are you watching a dating video if this is how you feel? That was clearly titled "How to Find Love After 50," and so there is that need, that want, that desire to have that somebody special in your life that makes it, for a lot of people, makes it all better. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. So Silke, we've had a lot of discussions, and it seems like the ones where we get the most views are ones that have to do with kind of I don't want to say hooking up, but sex. And how important is sex, from what you've heard, for people over 50? Of course, for me, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's about an 11. But I'm talking about for other folks out there. What have you heard from the men and from the women that you've interviewed?
Oh, that's a great question. And this is like one of the biggest myths that I think we address a lot, is that you're not interested in sex anymore after 50. And certainly the younger people and our kids don't want to hear us talk about this. And that's something I'm trying to change as well. If your parents, if older, this is a good thing. You have something forward to. And one of the big myths really is that women lose their libido, especially after menopause. And yes, things happen. There are hormonal things that go on, but there's all kinds of ways to deal with that. What's also interesting is, even without dealing with it, women like myself who had zero interest in sex for like 10 years, and I've talked about this openly, so I'm not telling you anything new. I had a sexless marriage for 10 years. Once you're back, you have somebody you actually want to be with, somebody that makes you feel good. I never lost libido, and sex has never has never been better. It's absolutely true that you can have the best sex in your life after 50. And that even goes for, I hear that from men, because it gets there's a lot more intimacy involved rather than just the penetrative sex. Are there issues? Absolutely. There's issues for younger people too. But I think that's a good word, intimacy. Your intimacy gets so much more intense, that those can be the best years of your life when it comes, to sex.
Mm-hmm. Now, I've heard from other folks. Now, I didn't get married till I reached the age of 50, and I'm glad I waited. But for a lot of people, I hear, I've heard that the sexless marriage, or going an extended period of time, not to ask you personally for you to divulge your situation, but just in general, what have you heard from people who've had these periods of lack of sex during a marriage? Is it the male? Is it the female? Could it be either? Is it a communication issue? Why do couples experience these fallow periods?
Oh, great question. And great question. And the answer is all of the above, and it just depends. I'm happy to talk, for me, I started developing, painful sex, which is very, very common. We talk about this very openly a lot too, because people are afraid to talk about it. You change, your vaginal walls change. This is all stuff that I learned after 50. Mm-hmm. I'm an educated woman. I did not know really what was going on with me. And certainly neither did my husband, and we never talked about it. And that happens so often, to where women will put up with, is a good way to put it, painful sex because they don't want to hurt their partner. They don't want to hurt their, they don't know how to talk about it because obviously something is wrong. Well, there is something wrong, but it's normal and it can easily be taken care of. So that's one thing. The other is just you grow apart. And that was part of our thing too. That was just, we stopped liking each other. I always say that one of the determining factors of staying in a marriage or just staying in any relationship, is, do you like being with this person? Do you look forward to being together? Do you laugh together? And all that was missing for me. And I think that's a huge contributor to, not just the relationship breaking up, but the desire, to be intimate, to have sex. Does that kind of
Makes
answer what you
perfect sense.
wanted to know?
Absolutely, absolutely. Silke Schwarzkopf, the producer and host of the popular Second Act TV, is my special guest on Guys Radio today. What do you think that women, from what you've heard from your guests, what do women wish men knew about them, and what do men wish women knew about them?
Oh, we have that. Oh, we've done tons. They need to watch our videos, Robert. Robert and I have talked about that a lot. And there's there's so many different ways to look at this. I think for me, women have trouble communicating. We do lots of stuff on that. And I don't speak for all women, but I speak for a good majority. I think this is a generality and it exists for a reason. I think certainly you can disagree with me, but women don't come to the point very quickly. They expect men to read their minds. I'm very guilty of that until I learned about all this. So the communication, just listening and understanding that we need a lot more probing, I guess. We love to be asked questions. Like if we're talking with you, one of the best things you can say, tell me more. That's like an aphrodisiac. Tell me more. All of a sudden you're opening a conversation that a woman really likes to have. And on the flip side, the woman needs to understand that men don't communicate like that, and not to take it personally, and maybe just educate yourself a little bit more about the primary differences that seem to hold true for most couples.
I would agree with you completely on that. And, I'm interviewing you here, so I don't have to get into all of my stuff, but I think you're spot on in that. I think a lot of relationships have ended because women had legitimate issues and they were about communication, yet they were at fault for not communicating their issues of communication with their partner. And many men get dumped and they are blindsided, yet the woman feels like, well, this was long overdue. You should have known that. And it's all about the communication there, because I think men and women do communicate differently. And if they can get on the same page with that, and I think your idea of saying, tell me more, how do you feel about that? Versus the usual thing with guys are like, what's the problem? How can I fix it? Because that's how we're kind of wired. Like, there's something wrong. How can I fix it? How can I be a protector? How can I do this for you? And sometimes the women don't really want to hear that. They want to just be heard, and they want to talk about stuff and have a little bit of back and forth conversation. So very good insights there. Well, with all the people,
let me say
Please,
one thing.
please.
What you just
Please.
said is, and I didn't mean to talk over you, I'm sorry.
No.
The blindsided, that is such a common thing that I hear. Men feel, oh, I was blindsided. And just like you said, the woman feels like it has been going on for a long time, but she didn't say anything. I was certainly guilty of that. So yes, listen, and I'm talking to men now because that really is a good piece of advice. If your woman is trying to talk with you and you do care, you're not in a situation where you want to end, do listen. Because anytime I tried to bring anything up or talk about it, it was just swept away or ignored, or and yeah, maybe I didn't do enough, but I do feel like I was just totally not heard. And I think that's a huge obstacle in relationships.
Mm-hmm. Now You've talked to a lot of men and women, and a lot of your shows are about relationships and sex, et cetera, after 50. Who do you think has it tougher? I know it's an individual situation always, but just in general, from what you've heard, do the ladies have it tougher to be single after 50, or do the men? And there's a couple of schools of thought here. Sometimes guys have been in a long-term marriage and they get dumped or whatever. They don't know what to do. Whereas some women haven't gotten married, or were married and got divorced, and they've been out in the field for a while, and they have the support group with other women, I think, in some instances, versus, guys are kind of the lone wolves out there. We don't talk too much to our buddies about relationship issues, unless, like, I'm getting married or I'm getting divorced or I met somebody new. There's not too much sharing there. It's like, who won the game last night? It's more of that stuff. That's just how
Yeah.
a lot of guys roll. But from what you've heard, Silke, who do you think has a tougher time being single after the age of 50, a man or a woman?
I think men do. I really do. I think there's, loneliness as an epidemic, period, especially as we age. With women, and I'm talking about women of our generation, I don't know if a lot of this will hold true for, the 20, 30-year-olds now. I don't know, that remains to be seen. But women of our generation, certainly my generation, we took care of our men. I was German. That was even worse. I was that was all expected of me. And a lot of other women are caretakers. That was the role. And when you're single, all of a sudden it's kind of nice not to have to do that. I've heard that a lot. You really want to be with someone, again, that you like, that you have a relationship with, and all of a sudden, you can be yourself. You can be the person that you wanted to be. And women like that. And I think women, it's easier for them to be single. I think the statistics support that. John Gray, who you've of course had on your show too, he talks to that a lot, that the average man, I think, gets remarried like within a year or 3 years or something really short, to where women, it's like the average is like 8 to 9 years. So even statistically, that's supported that men have trouble being alone.
What we talked about, we did a segment about friends with benefits after 50, and it went viral. It blew up. And,
Yes.
I was doing some research and I read that there's a big problem with STDs in senior homes, because there's so much hopping around there. And it's really, people are really randy in their elder age. And the friends with benefit notion, which basically was compartmentalizing sex. Do you men, I think in their younger years can compartmentalize sex. Women, it seems like, have more challenges with that early on, but as they age, they can put it into a different frame of perspective. Whereas guys are, I think, starting to look more for the intimacy as they get older, and they want more than just, the wham bam, thank you, ma'am. They want to have something there. What is your insights on that? I could be completely wrong.
I think there is no concrete answer. Here's my take on it. Yeah, that was a great segment. Still, every day we got comments on that. I think it's very difficult to compartmentalize. I think somebody is always a little bit on a different page. And I think it's harder for women to be in that kind of relationship and not become emotionally involved. And I agree with you that as men age, that is the case too. There are lots of relationships like that seem to work. It'd be interested, if anybody's wants to watch the segment, maybe you can link to it and just read the comments. There's got hundreds of comments on it as to whether it's good or bad and what you have to consider, etc. It wouldn't work for me, I don't think. I mean, I wouldn't. I want to feel something more than just sex from the person I'm with. So that's speaking from just for me. But I think there's a lot of women that feel like that as well.
Okay, Silke Schwarzkopf, my very special guest on Guys Radio. She's a friend, and she's a fellow host, a great YouTube channel. I love being on her show. Last bit. Are you optimistic or pessimistic about the second act from your own life, and also from what you've heard from your guests?
Oh, well, no, I'm optimistic, of course. And what is, I mean, the big thing is health. You know, as long as you have your health, I mean, we hear this all the time, but it's so true. If you are, you know, have can get around, you have, you know, you're healthy, basically healthy, there is no reason you can't accomplish just about anything. It's incredible the feats that are being, you know, both physically and, you know, in business, what people can create if you really want to. There's also people, I love people that are heading up, you know, rewriting the story around aging, because we've been raised and we've been taught that aging is a bad thing. Who's that? You know, who determined that? And there's people out there that have written really great books that really get you to think that there's so much more ahead. And that's absolutely where I am, and with the channel, that's the message we want to keep reinforcing.
I agree with you 1,000%, and I want to set you up for that. So thank you so much for being on Guys Radio again. We'll do it again. Everybody can check out Silke on her show, Second Act TV on YouTube, and they can check out me because I'm a frequent guest there and we have a lot of fun. So thank you so much, Silke. Great seeing you again.
Thank you, Robert. Always love talking with you.
Me too. If you enjoy the guests and content I bring you each and every week on Guys Radio and TV, please help out by subscribing to my channels. Thanks for your support.